Hey class, so I'm going to be doing a case study on the privatization of water resources in Jakarta. So in this short video, I'm just going to be talking about a brief background of Indonesia, but more so focusing on water privatization in Jakarta. I'm going to be covering what kind of conflicts occurred from it and what is currently going on after privatization. So to show you how Jakarta looks like, it is a big sprawling metropolis, and it is also a center for government, politics, and commerce. And within Indonesia's capital are city slums, and in these areas the quality of water is really poor, and in such cases people must travel long distances in order to grab drinkable water. So to show you where Jakarta is located at, it is located in the tip of the island on the Java Sea, and is also split into 5 regions: north, south, east, west, and central. So for the case study, the reason that privatization occurred is because the government wanted better quality water and efficient water services. So to understand how privatization occurred in Jakarta, it all began when the Indonesian government needed ways to improve the country's water resources. So they looked towards two private companies, Lenau Suez, owned by the French, and Thames Water International, owned by the British. So when the Indonesian government and the 2 private sectors negotiated with each other, they finally came to an agreement, or called the Cooperation Agreement, in which they agreed upon 25-year contracts. So these 25-year contracts made the 2 private companies pretty much in charge of Jakarta's water resources, leaving Pamjaya, a 4th party, who were originally in charge of Jakarta water resources, powerless. And because of that contract, it was really one-sided, in such that Pamjaya accumulated a huge amount of debt and was under the whim of the private sector, and so began the downfall of privatization. So once the 25-year contracts were finally agreed upon, the 2 private sectors and Pamjaya were made to work together, and in order to support the projects to improve Jakarta's water supply and piped water network, the World Bank and other financial institutions offered loans to those 3 parties. And when the 1998 Asian financial crisis occurred, it devalued the Indonesian rupiah. So those loans offered by the banks increased 4-fold, and thus made the 3 parties fall into a huge amount of debt. Another reason why privatization was a failure is that the 2 private companies were short-handed in reaching their goals. So in stating a few facts, originally the private sector wanted to cover 70% of Jakarta's population with water, but in actuality only 50% actually had access to piped water. So even though the poor urban communities were to afford the water services provided by the private sector, the water that was being transported was of poor quality and did not fulfill the volume for which the poor communities paid for. And so this forced the poor urban communities to look for other alternative sources of water. And so these poor communities rely on water vendors as an alternative source. The poor communities prefer these water vendors because although it's more expensive than the actual pipe network in Jakarta, the quality of water was way better, and that because it was offered on the streets, it was easily accessible for these poor communities. And so the current situation now in Jakarta is that the local population is against privatization now. And so the Central Jakarta District Court approved a lawsuit against the two private companies just recently in March 2015. And to wrap it all up, the privatization of Jakarta's water resources was an attempt by the Indonesian government to develop very efficient water services and improve the quality of water. However, the privatization of the capital's resources lean towards the private sector instead of an actual public-private partnership. So now the local population and the current Indonesian government are against privatization and are looking forward to transfer the power from the private to the state. And that ends my case study. Thank you.